What's good, y'all? It is Wake Up Wednesday.
And today we're going to talk about deep and simple or shallow and complex.
You have to think through that, don't you?
I really do.
Welcome to the Renegade Relationship Realists with Reverend Pierre McAllister and Rachel Dilling. Please be advised, this channel is rated R for realism.
Hi, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Rev and Rachael.
And today we're going to talk about a quote that Mr. Rogers said, and that is deep and simple versus shallow and complex. And he was talking about how
Rachel,
does one live his life.
before you get into that, could you, for our listeners, could you say who Mr. Rogers is? Because some people...
What? How does anybody not know who Mr. Rogers is?
Well, I think in our younger group may
Fair
not
enough.
know.
Actually, they just came out with a documentary about him.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of them. So Mr. Rogers was a gentleman who had a children's show, 70s, it might even got into the 80s, and he was an amazing man. And if you don't know who Mr. Rogers is, I highly recommend looking him up. He was one of the few people that have been in broadcasting that really, not even few, but he's one of the ones that made a huge difference, even in the awareness of racism. He was one of the very first children programs to bring on a black character, which was a cop. And he, I remember watching, he had a little pool, it was summertime, little baby pools, and he had his shoes and socks off, and he put his feet in, and the cop came by, and he said, "Come on in, and put your feet in the pool, it's cool." And they did that, and that was when there was this huge issue about black people and white people swimming together.
Ah.
And so it was about breaking some of those barriers in a very real, genuine, loving way. Oh, I love that man. Anyways, one of his quotes is, "Do you live your life deep and simple or shallow and complex?" And so I love that because it made me start thinking about how we live our lives in today's world. And there's so much knowledge and there's so much noise coming at us all the time that a lot of us know a little bit about this and a little bit about this and a little bit about this. So we have very complex lives, but they're all very shallow, and we have more suicides and more unhappy people in today's world than ever before, and yet our lives are so much better, meaning that we've got washing machines and refrigerators and toaster ovens, but there's still a lack of contentment. Yeah, and I really believe it's because everything is so shallow and complex. And if we took the time and started really diving and learning who we are and having that deep, simple life, that we would be happier. You know, when he retired, he moved to a seashore. I think it was in New York. I can't swear to that. But that's how he lived out his life, in a beach town. And he was a happy man.
Well, what happens in today's society, because we have access to so much information, and we like to chit-chat about so many different topics as if it makes our lives more fulfilling. But that's not actually what happens. With the millennials that I work with, part of the issue is they are so talented because they have, access to so much information, and they're multi-talented. It is very difficult for them to then come to, what is my life purpose?
Yes.
What's the biggest piece? Because I'm good at this, and I'm good at this, and I'm good at this, and I can get information from about this and this and this, but that's actually not, as again, that's what you were saying, it's really not the fulfilling piece. The fulfilling piece is find out what it is what's really floating your boat, so to speak, and go deep and become extremely good at that. It doesn't mean you can't do the other things. It doesn't mean that you can't be good at other things. It doesn't mean that you can't get information about other things. But what we find is, even in relationships, what happens is people will talk about a particular topic. They want to get to know their mate intimately within the topic. You can't do that if you're just bouncing around all over the place. So that's why simple and deep. And what we find is, the truth is, whatever your topic is that even we talk about, and we only have a few minutes on this, but whatever topic we decide, the richer conversations happen in a longer period of time. You were just talking about when you and David were dating.
Oh, yeah.
And how, and I've certainly, Juan and I did the same thing. You start talking, and it's 6 hours later.
Yeah.
Maybe you've covered quite a few topics, but there's usually those topics where you keep going and going, and you're finding out more and more about each other.
And you get deeper.
That is so much more satisfying.
Right. So I wonder because we live in such a surfacey world with the Facebook and the Twitter and all of that, and how do I communicate all of my thoughts and feelings in 200 characters? You know, or